This Denzel's quote changed Will's destiny. That's not just a headline. That's real life. There was a moment in my life when everything I built, everything I thought defined me was hanging by a thread. Money, success, the smiles on red carpets, all of it. But none of that could stop the storm that was coming. See, people think pressure comes when you're broke or unknown. But I'm telling you the truth. The real pressure comes when you got everything to lose. When you're standing on top of the mountain and you realize you're alone. Now picture this. You've worked for decades. You've sacrificed family time. You've been the hardest worker in every room. And just when you think you figured out life, you get hit with the kind of moment that makes your whole soul stop. For me, that moment wasn't on a set. It wasn't on a stage. It happened backstage in a corner with Denzel's as Washington looking me dead in the eye. And what he said shifted the entire direction of my life. Let me ask you something. Had you ever been so focused on winning that you didn't realize you were losing yourself in the process? That was me. And the worst part, I didn't see it coming. We all chase something. Success, recognition, respect. But the question is, what if the thing you're chasing ain't even yours to catch? What if the price of arriving is losing the very soul that got you started? Denzel's quote hit me like lightning. He said, at your highest moment, be careful. That's when the devil comes for you. It wasn't a warning. It was a prophecy. I stood there, trying to process it. And the more I sat with it, the more I realized he wasn't talking about some devil with horns and fire. He was talking about me, my ego, my pride, my fear of not being enough, even after being everything. That was the devil. And if you're watching this right now, maybe you're not on movie set or walking into award shows, but I promise you've got your own highest moment waiting. Or maybe you're already in it. And if you don't see the danger in that, you might already be paying the price. Let's talk about how to recognize it. Let's break down how to take that moment and flip it. Because what I learned after that Denzel's moment changed not just how I live, but why I lied. So stay with me, because what's coming next might just be the mirror you didn't know you needed. Sometimes it takes a storm to show you what your foundation's really made of. And by the end of this, you'll know how to build differently. When Denzel spoke those words to me, I smiled on the outside. But inside, it felt like he'd just read a journal I didn't even know I was writing. A silent log of my choices, my fears, my compromises. See, people think motivation is always loud. Fire, energy, David. But there's another side to it, the side where motivation isn't about climbing, but not falling. Not letting the mask slip. I was motivated by fear. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of not being good enough without applause. Fear of being just Will without the icon attached to it. That kind of motivation doesn't lift you. It changes you. And the scariest part, it looks like success. I didn't notice it at first because the world applauds output, but it rarely checks in on input. You can give the world $1 billion smile while starving your soul. I had trained myself to push through everything. Hey, fatigue. Now, that sounds noble until you realize you've never stopped long enough to ask, why am I pushing? Here's the twist. The same traits that helped me rise were the same traits pulling me under. Discipline became obsession. Excellence became perfectionism. Confidence morphed into control. And love? Well, even love became performance. Denzel's words cracked open a part of me I'd been protecting. The part that wanted to pause. The part that wanted to be a man, not just a brand. I used to tell myself I had to carry it all. The expectations, the legacy, the entire world on my back. And maybe you know that feeling too. Maybe you're carrying more than you need to because somewhere along the line, you started believing that dropping even one ball means you're failing everybody. But let me say this, there's no medal for being emotionally bankrupt at the finish line. And there's no honor in sacrificing your peace just to meet somebody else's image of success. When Denzel said the devil comes for you, I realized he wasn't warning me of some external attack. He was warning me of internal decay. He was saying, don't get so high that you forget what's holding you up. And that thing holding me up was crumbling. So I started to dig. I sat in silence. I journaled like my life depended on it because it did. I asked myself the hard questions. Who am I if no one's watching? Who am I when I'm not performing? Would I like the man I am if I met him on the street? That's when the shift began. Not in public, not on stage, but in the shadows, the part nobody claps for, the un-Instagrammable moments, the real growth. You know what's wild? Once I stopped running from myself and started sitting with myself, I realized I wasn't alone in this. We live in a world where so many people are chasing the symbol of success, not the substance. There's a guy I knew, he built an empire from the ground up. Real estate, business stocks, expensive watches, the whole thing. Every time we crossed paths, it was like watching a highlight reel. But one day, I caught a glimpse behind the scenes. Lonely, angry, tired. He told me, Will, I got everything I wanted. But I lost the way along the way. Man, that hit me because that was me too. We don't talk enough about the emotional debt we collect while paying off our dreams. You think you're being strong, being driven, but strength without alignment, that's just misdirected energy. And sooner or later, it turns against you. Denzel's Washington didn't hand me a solution. He handed me a mirror, and what I saw staring back was a man out of sync. Not a failure, not broken, just misaligned. That's a heavy word, misaligned. It means your values and your habits are pulling in opposite directions. It means you're sprinting toward a future that your soul is begging you to avoid. That's why this isn't just a celebrity story. This is a human story. A story for anyone who's ever looked in the mirror and felt like they were living someone else's script. Let me ask you something. Are you moving fast or are you moving forward? Because I've learned it the hard way. Speed is useless if you're on the wrong path. One night during that internal reset, I sat with my daughter. No script, no cameras, just her and me. And she said, Daddy, you don't have to be perfect to be loved. That sentence did something to me because my whole career had been built around perfection. Clean image, strong delivery, controlled emotions. But that little girl, she loved me in my mess. She loved me when I wasn't Will Smith. Just so Dad, that's when I really started redefining what success meant to me. It wasn't about movies or money anymore. It was about meaning, about wholeness. And listen, that shift doesn't mean you stop being ambitious. It means your ambition finally serves you, instead of you being a slave to it. I started asking myself better questions. Not how do I win, but what does winning even look like for me? Not what will people think, but can I live with myself when I'm alone? Let me tell you, there's a kind of peace that comes when you stop negotiating your worth with your performance. And that peace, that's the real prize. When I started living with intention instead of impression, the world around me changed. Not because the world changed, I changed. I stopped chasing applause and started listening for alignment. I stopped trying to be invincible and started learning how to be real. That Denzel's quote, at your highest moment, be careful, it stopped being a warning and started becoming wisdom. And now I see it everywhere. In the way people hustle for validation, and how we measure success by the size of the crowd instead of the weight of our piece. Let me tell you something I never said on stage. The pressure to always be on almost crushed me. People saw the smile, the charm, the perfect life. But I was running on spiritual fumes. The tank was empty, but the engine kept roaring. Why? Because I had confused purpose with productivity. I thought staying busy meant I was staying relevant. But the truth, business is often just a distraction from the real work, the inner work. You ever notice how it's easier to keep moving than to stop and reflect? That's because stillness is where the truth shows up. And sometimes the truth, it's uncomfortable, but it's also the only place healing begins. You know what really changed for me? I started embracing silence, not as a break, but as a teacher. When you cut out the noise, you start hearing what your life's really saying. And mine was screaming for a new direction. That's when I began to rebuild from the inside out. No cameras, no utter rush, this faith, focus, and forgiveness. I forgave myself for not knowing better. I forgave myself for wearing a mask for too long. I even forgave the part of me that thought love had to be earned. Because here's the truth: you don't have to perform for worthiness. You're worthy because you exist. Now let's get practical. You might not have Denzels in your life whispering deep truths at your breaking point, but you do have your inner voice, and that voice is speaking to you every day. The question is, are you still enough to hear it? Maybe your version of highest moment doesn't come with a trophy. Maybe it's when you finally get the job, or the relationship, or the validation you've been dying for. But in that moment, don't lose yourself. That's when the test begins. Let me break it down like this: life will always test your identity right after it rewards your ambition. You'll get the thing you wanted, and then life will ask, can you hold this and still stay true? If you can answer that confidently, pause. Breathe. Reconnect. I had to learn how to win without losing myself. And I had to learn how to fail without letting it define me. That's emotional strength. That's spiritual clarity. That's freedom. So whether you're chasing dreams, rebuilding your identity, or just trying to breathe again, let this land deep. You are more than your last success. You are more than your next achievement. You are a human being, not a highlight reel. There came a moment in this journey when I had to look myself in the mirror and say, you're not here to impress. You're here to express. That's the difference between living loud and living true. And it changed everything. When I started showing up as me, not as the image, not as the brand, people didn't walk away. In fact, they leaned in closer, because the truth, authenticity, is magnetic. It doesn't just attract attention, it creates connection. That's what I was missing all those years. Connection, not just to others, but to myself. I have fans, but I needed peace. I had moments, but I wanted meaning. And meaning doesn't come from standing at the top. It comes from standing in your truth. So I began a daily ritual, not for performance, but for grounding. Every morning I ask, who do I need to be today to honor the life I've been given? Not what do I need to prove, not what do I need to protect, but who do I need to be? And that's when I really started to feel alive again. Not as Will Smith the actor, but as Will Smith the man, the father, the learner, the believer. I don't get it twisted, there's still ambition in me. But now it's rooted in service, not ego. I don't want to impress the world anymore. I want to impact it. I want to leave a trail of hearts lit up, not just red carpets walked on. And here's what I've come to know. The most powerful man in any room is not the loudest, not the richest, not the one with the most trophies. It's the one who's mastered his inner world, who's got peace when the applause fades, purpose when the spotlight moves on. That's the kind of strength you can't buy. That's the kind of wealth Denzel's was pointing me toward. Spiritual wealth, emotional stability, alignment. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering where to go next, start with stillness. Start with truth. Start with honesty. You don't need a spotlight to shine. You just need alignment. Denzel's Washington's motivation didn't change my acting. It changed my awareness. It helped me shift from being addicted to outcomes to being anchored in values. And here's the crazy part. Once I made an internal shift, my external world followed. Better relationships, better clarity, better energy, even better art, because I was no longer working for validation. I was working from purpose. There's a big difference between the two. Look, I know some of you watching are standing at your own edge right now, not sure whether to keep pushing forward or just drop everything and start over. And maybe you've been chasing goals, but they don't feel like they're yours anymore. Here's what I'd say to you: check the foundation. Is it built on ego or on roof? Because if it's not built on truth, no matter how high you climb, eventually it'll shake. It'll shake. And if you don't know where to begin, start with one question: what kind of life feels honest to me? Not perfect, not popular, just honest. And from there, rebuild one brick at a time. I can't promise you the climb will be easy, but I can promise you it will be worth it, because the view from a life well lived is better than any trophy shelf. If this message hit something in you, if you felt seen, heard, or understood, then you need to watch the next video. What's stopping people from reaching their goal? It dives into the mental traps that keep you stuck even when you're doing all the right things. And trust me, it connects exactly where this conversation leaves off. You are not here to survive the world's expectations. You are here to awaken your eyes. We are wisdom recorder, your knowledge source. Subscribe, like, and share this with someone who's ready to live aligned, not just admired. Your next level starts right now.